Brilliant. Very good. I'm going to eat while we chat, if that's okay.
Of course it is.
Donna, tell me again about the geese. The whole story, exactly as it happened. I love it.
Okay.
I love anomalies. They're just magical. You know, they really are. I never get old of them. It never gets tired, and it never. One thinks one will might get that magic may get old, but it never does because it's kind of impossible every time, right?
Right. I do appreciate your perspective because honestly, they used to I didn't used to see it that way, and your perspective of it being magical and fun and just a learning experience versus what am I doing wrong and oh boy, I
Gotcha.
missed the message, right? So
Yes. Yes.
it's really helping with that a lot.
Brilliant.
It's
Brilliant.
if you know that they happen a lot, which they do in my world,
Uh
you
huh.
can imagine how much of the time I was like, ugh, versus ah, right?
Exactly, exactly, and that's the key. That shift, that's exactly the key, is to relook at this in a different way. And I want to say something very important before you tell me the story again
Okay.
of the anomalies. It's very critical to realize and understand that there is no one interpretation of an anomaly. We tend to get stuck in this idea of an interpretation. And we don't just do it with anomalies, we do it with everything. What's the reason for why something happened? What's the explanation? By implication, we assuming there's a single explanation or a reason or understanding and so on. There aren't. There's always multiple reasons for pretty much everything. There's always multiple implications, multiple reasons, multiple understandings. So all of this, we have to keep that in mind, and especially with anomalies. They are like, man, there's usually layers and very different meanings that can apply, but that's the magic and the wonder and the marvel of them. Hey, we get somebody else joining. I sent an email for everybody to join because this is such an important topic, and your story is so powerful. And these anomalies, Donna, they don't happen to everybody, and when they do, that's the trick. I've had plenty anomalies happen in my life, same with Olivia. We've encountered like zillions of them, but it's very difficult to remember them from the past. I don't know why that is. They just don't seem to stick in our memories the way other things do. Well, I thought
That is
somebody was
so
joining.
true.
So now that you have this fresh, that's why I sent out an email for everybody to come join if they want to, because it's very powerful, and I'd like to share this session with everyone, if you don't mind. And normally I just share with the people who are on it, but this is such a powerful topic and it's so important. I'd kind of like to share it with everybody because it's huge, and you have the anomaly fresh, which means, and it's also connected to a previous anomaly. There's a theme going on here, which is even more rare when it comes to anomalies. Usually they just come and they go, and that's the end of it. So this is very exciting. This is very cool. So
Well, a lot of the anomalies, I have a hard time saying that word, also they connect to, I- it's been going on for a long time and they do have a theme, and you're right, it's hard to remember them. I have to write them down immediately. But it's almost like in most conversations that I have with people, it somehow relates to my city.
mm,
As weird as that is, I'll give you an example that happened today that was very fresh in my mind.
no. So before you go, 1 second, just because I want to share this. When you say your city, you mean the city of love, the city from your visions, right?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
not my city, but I'm just
Right.
using those
Well, I
words.
know
Yeah.
mine in inverted commas. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Um, but yeah, I at work, I had this woman come in just as an example, and she was just there to give a quote on cleaning the office space. And inevitably, there's some kind of connection, and
Wow.
maybe I don't want to come at this as like seeing too much into things. There's a little
Mhm.
bit of me that feels a little bit about like that, but it's like the details are so spot on. Like she talked about going to Florida to Siesta Key, and that's I used to live in Florida, and Siesta Key keeps coming up in conversation. Literally, it's been a half a dozen times in like 3 days. So
Wow.
that was one thing. Her love for animals, and the element of the city has a place for dogs. And she described what she and her husband's dream is. And it was like almost spot on to the vision that I had.
Wow.
Hers wasn't as futuristic. It was, kind of a toned down version of the vision that I have, a more, making sure dogs are taken care of in a lake and no
Right.
cages and, those kinds of things. But so a lot of the conversations, like a person comes in and she's talking about giving me a bid for cleaning. And then all of a sudden there's either a restaurant conversation or a puppy palace conversation or something to do with health or the theme of education in the city. And like almost every conversation I'm having with people, it starts out with, maybe a work or, whatever
Right.
topic. And then all of a sudden it's leading into the vision of the city.
I love it. I love it. There's so much going on, and it's so magical, and it's so awesome. Before we get into the anomalies themselves, let's also look at this from a different angle. I always like to look for the mundane and the ordinary explanation, just to put our inner bureaucrats at rest, to say, we're not just mindlessly and ridiculously being silly about things. We're not just believing in all sorts of woo-woo stuff, that we are being sensible about this in the overall, right? So
Right.
from an ordinary explanation, we have to understand queuing and how queuing works. And precisely that what happens when you talk to now let's say the cleaning lady there, or the one who came to give you the quote, that may be an anomaly. We'll look at it in detail a little bit later, but let's just assume it isn't for purposes of understanding queuing. Let's just look for that ordinary explanation. Sometimes what's in our heart, what's on our minds, what's kind of sitting inside us, that comes, not sometimes, usually almost always, that comes out through us. It's like almost it's coming out through our pores. Like when you see somebody's upset, right? They're upset. They haven't said a word about why they're upset, but you can see it. Even if they aren't, like, the expression isn't so, and even if they're acting all nice and everything, you can still kind of know when people aren't exactly being where they're at, right? They cue you in some way, some subtle way, that there's other stuff going on inside them. Now, that cueing can be very overt and very obvious, when somebody's obviously expressed or in a negative mood or angry or upset or whatever. But this cueing goes to very subtle concepts as well, and especially stuff that sits deep in ourselves, that's deep in our heart, deep in our awareness, that's important to us, that matters to us, that comes through, and people pick up on that. Yes, to me, that's somewhat magical how they pick up on that, but we are extreme experts at this because our very survival throughout the centuries has very much depended on this ability to read intent and to read where people are coming from, and to have this idea of picking up on what's going on inside, right? So that's how we have survived deception and trickery and treachery and, just things wanting to eat us and pretending otherwise and all sorts of stuff. So we are really good at this. People just forget that they are, don't realize that they are. So we have to understand that in this case, you also put this out and people pick up on it, who are receptive to that. So you are only going to get that connectivity from those people. It's not as if you get it from every single person you come into contact with, right?
Right. But it's a lot of people. And
Right.
what's interesting is like my focused intent had been on expanding my interactions with people
There you go.
and and to but the opposite has happened actually. As far as numbers of people, for
Mm.
example, I used to work in an office building and I would think to myself, man, I'm in this little office space and I'm in a big old building, but I hardly ever see people. And it
Mm.
was just like this observation that I made that was kind of laying heavy on my mind. And I thought I would enjoy building my network of people that are more knowledgeable about what you and I are talking
Mhm.
about. I've been wanting that for a long time because I feel sort of like a lone person on this island. And instead of there being literally more physical bodies in my world now, where I
Mhm.
am in my new office, is even smaller than a big building. The interaction of the people that I have is less. My world is becoming really, as far as quote unquote number of people I'm interacting with, more narrow. However, I'm feeling like I'm seeing a trend of it being more like-minded people
There
that
you
I
go.
can have these kind of conversations with. So I find that interesting.
And that's when I was saying last time, the world doesn't work the way we think it does.
Right.
So you set an intent to connect with more people. Right. So we have to understand that the world doesn't work the way we think it does. And we have to be open to broader implementations of our intent. You have actually achieved that intent, right? Not in the, you may be connected to less people around you in the immediate, but you're connecting to more like-minded people on the whole, on the overall, right?
Right.
There you go. You've gotten your intent. Now, maybe it's a good thing that you get less people around you. There's less distractions. You can connect and notice and precisely know those people who are the ones you're wanting to connect to more easily. They stand out better. Whereas in a big building, that may be lost a little bit. Yeah?
Yeah, I feel like what I'm realizing there is you can have an intent and then attach a picture to what you think that intent will look like, but your higher self knows a whole lot better than you
Exactly.
and brings you exactly what you need.
What you just said, that's the key. That is absolutely essential. And we have to be acutely aware of that. So when we set an intent, we need to be very clear about precisely what we want and leave the actual implementation in terms of the details up to the universe. We don't know how that can implement. If we did know, we wouldn't need the intent, right?
Right. I've had some confusion about that. Like we were, talked about a little while ago, and that's, you've been very helpful with defining clarity of intent, because I take in a lot of information and I'm a learner. So I hear about this type of teaching and their belief and setting goals and writing it down and an action plan, and then I moved past that years ago. But then there's this teaching of saying your intent and being specific and taking actions. And, so there's all kinds of teachings, but then you just kind of find one that feels right for you.
Right.
And it might be a little of 5 different teachings, but it's your own. So that's the most important thing. And that's what I'm learning.
Right. The key in terms of from the way of impeccability perspective is to understand the difference between intent and wishes and desires and hopes, and how we imagine our intent will be fulfilled. That's the part that we have to be careful about, that imagining of how it would be fulfilled. Like in the case of you intending to be connected with like-minded people, imagining it to be fulfilled through your work environment, that's a very narrow interpretation of how it possibly could be fulfilled, right? I mean, you could have social groups out of work, you could meet somebody and then you could go to, I don't know, various clubs or, activities where there are more people like that. You could meet people over the internet, or people could randomly walk into your life like this woman did, recently. So there's all sorts of ways this could happen. We don't know. So we have to be open for the implementation part to happen as it's going to happen. The intent is the key that we need to be very clear and specific about. The application part, that's up to the universe, not up to us. Right?
I'm seeing that so frequently.
Right.
And so, yes.
And that right there is a very, very deep and fundamental and very key point of discernment, to understand that difference. That's what we want. We want to have discernment. Oh, I'm getting milk all over my beard. Dang nabbit. Sorry. I'm trying to eat cereal in a hurry here.
We could have done this later and given
No,
time.
I like eating and doing things together. It's a productive use of eating time. I love multitasking.
All right.
So I always do something when I'm eating. Always. I like it because like I said, I use my time efficiently. So yeah, no problem. It's just There you go. The beard's all fun and games until you drop chocolate sauce or peanut butter or something in it. Then not so much.
Not much.
No, I joke. Not that that happens very often. Well, it doesn't happen at all as far as I remember, but still, I'm teasing. Anyway, we're saying about the anomalies and discernment. How we got to have fun. That's the key part here, is to develop that discernment, to see past the kind of obvious logic. Obvious logic. Yes, we wanna be aware of the obvious that we don't know, but there's kind of like that surface one step obvious logic that we just assume that we kind of know how things will work out, and that we have to be very careful about that assumption. Hang on one second, Donna. Let me go and turn on the halogen light so that I don't flicker so much. All right, there we go. See, much better, right?
That was kind of a cool effect, though.
Oh, okay. You like the wizard energy. For some people, they find it disturbing. Those are the wizard energy emanations.
I liked it.
All right. Well, then I got to put off the halogen light because it's blinking.
No.
Oh, all right.
Okay.
I mean, I'm happy to put it off. It's a very hot light, but it's okay.
Whatever's comfortable for you.
No, it's not a problem. I like it for the recording also, so it's good. It does distract for some people, so I don't know why. You see my curly hair. You see, it's why I have the long hair. So it's all my energy, like Samson. See, it's all my powers in the hair. You see.
Yeah. Is there truly power in hair? I mean, there is. Is there not?
Say again.
There is power in hair.
I don't know. It's not why I have the long hair. It's just, I don't know if I explained it before. It's that application of cueing, So since we're talking about cueing, that's why it's come about. It's simply for me to apply one of the things that well, it's not necessarily specifically part of the way of impeccability, course, but it is part of our writing. The whole Biala series. You'll see it comes in. Well, it may come in earlier than that, but there's a very specific part, I think in chapter 11 or 12 or somewhere over there. So you've started reading the Biala series, you said, right?
Yes, I did.
Oh, good. And you're enjoying?
I am very much.
Oh, very good. It's very dear to our hearts, and it's a story that's not written with the usual reasons for writing a story.
Nice.
It's not written to be popular or read by everybody and so on. So.
I can see that.
Right. So it's different, it's a very special story in that way, and there's a lot to it, and also it's about the application of the underlying mindset and philosophy and attitudes and ways of being of everything that's in the course. So it's about the application of the way of impeccability and the underlying philosophy, the A+ philosophy. So that's kind of the reason for it. Which is pretty cool, and we just like it too. We really like Biela, so. And all of them, really, all the characters, yeah, and all the characters. So yeah, we'll get into that at another time. We'll have conversations about that specifically. I do want to come back to your geese, though. Your geese are very important, and it's always useful to do this as well. To keep one's focus. Yes, you can go on a sidetrack, but come back to that focus always. It's very powerful, and that applies to our intent as well. That we can divert and get distracted temporarily, but we have to constantly come back to that intent. Because, we're talking about two things actually in this conversation. We're talking about anomalies and living in attunement, which is, they go together. But we're also talking about intent and the application of intent and how that works. Now, that's a big topic that we haven't gotten into really, and we will get into it some more. But I just want to say that when it comes to intent, there's a slow magic to intent, because when we set up an intent, and there's a whole kind of series of steps to setting up an intent, and they're kind of obvious when it comes to impeccability, really. But the key with this slow magic is to understand that when we set an intent, what are we really doing? We're asking the world to rearrange itself for our benefit and how we would like it to rearrange itself, right?
Right.
I mean, that's at bottom what we're asking when we set an intent. We're saying, hey, whole world, I can't do this on my own, otherwise I would do it. So please help me out and rearrange yourself to suit me. That's really what an intent is. So we have to understand that, yes, that can happen. And it does happen frequently. However, first of all, we have to be very real about this and very serious and very earnest. Why? Because it's a big ask, right? And we don't want to just go around asking favors like that from the universe just for nonsense, right?
Right.
This is why people can't intend $1 million. It doesn't work that way because we're not really serious about it. Yeah, we may think we are, but not really, really. Right? So we save it for stuff that's really, really important. That's what an intent is. It's something that's truly, really, really, really important. Right? I mean, like a lot of people say they want to be wealthy, but then you ask them, do you want to hire money managers? Do you want to distrust everybody in your life? Do you want to have all your friends constantly asking you for money? Do you always want to be concerned with security and all the stuff that goes with wealth, right? I say, oh, no, hell no, please. I don't want any of that crap. They don't actually think it through, except that this stuff is kind of obvious. So when they do kind of become aware of all that stuff, which they kind of know inside themselves, they don't really, really want it. You see what I mean? They
I
think they
do.
do. Right. So that's very important to understand about intent. Intent is about stuff that we really, really want. Actually, really, that's truly important to us. Stuff that matters to our soul, to our higher self. So that's step number one. All right. Then step number two, like we said, we're asking the whole world to rearrange itself for our benefit. That means this is going to take some time because the world's a big place and stuff has to happen. And a lot of stuff it's not going to happen just instantly. So we have to have that patience to allow that slow magic of intent to kind of filter through and take place and for stuff to happen because we're making this big ask. It's a big, big thing we're asking. So we have to wait and be patient. Then the other key point is when we understand that it's going to take time for the intent to manifest and come into being, right? Then we also have to understand that we can't get impatient and say, oh, it's not working, and then switch to some other intent. Because now all that energy that went into setting up the first intent, now, well, you haven't canceled it, so it's still trying to rearrange it, but now you've set up a second intent. So now the universe has to kind of get them both to work together, which just makes the whole thing even much more complicated, right? So,
I can
it's
see
just the
that.
complexity. It gets magnified with each additional intent that you add onto the thing. So we have to give our intents time to work, and we can't cancel them by having secondary intents or, change our mind or switch to some other plan. We have to stick with our intents, and we have to keep on it until they come through. So that's very important when it comes to intent. It's very powerful and it's very necessary to understand that side of intent. And also to understand when it comes to intent, intent is not a get out of jail free card, because it's about we have to use our energy sparingly and use our energy wisely. I mean, that's what impeccability is. Impeccability is supreme, ultimate, maximum energy management, right? So we don't
Right.
want to be just squandering our energy on stuff that we can do ourselves in terms of our intent. We want to save that for when we really need it, when it's really important. So we got to save intent for when it's absolutely necessary and we don't have any other choice, and that's all that's left to us when we don't have the options ourselves. So from an impeccability point of view, we want to always make sure we've done everything we can possibly do. Now, like in the case of your intent to connect with more like-minded people, that is a worthy intent. Why? Because it's very difficult in the ordinary world to find and connect to people who are truly like-minded. Yes, we can go on the internet and go on Facebook and try that. But as everybody who knows, that's somewhat of a mess. People think and believe they're like-minded, but aren't really. It's very difficult to get to that level of connectivity without having to go through huge amounts of effort and hassle and work. And, it's just not possible to really filter through it. I mean, even if you went through one person a day, of intense scrutiny, which would be a very big deal. I mean, that would be highly productive, to find out all about somebody in a day, to know precisely where they're at. You can do that for a year and you've still only, filtered and sorted through 365 people, which isn't a lot when it comes to the billions in the world, right?
Right.
So it's very hard to connect to people, like-minded people who are truly, truly like-minded on our own. Yeah, we can do the best we can, but at the same token, this is something that is worthy of an intent. So it's important to understand this, and also understand probabilities as well, which brings to the next point. right? In terms of anomalies. To understand anomalies is very important to understand probabilities. But we'll get to that a bit later. I want to hear the geese story again, please, Donna.
Okay. I was driving to work the same route that I was the other day
Uh-huh.
and going about 30, 35 miles an hour. That's what made the bird flying in front of the car unusual, because I have hit birds before on the highway because you're
Right,
going fast and they can't get out of the way. So anyway, I
right.
digress. So I'm driving in at the
Well,
exact
one
same.
second. That's actually an important point. That bird, did you run into the bird or did the bird fly into you?
The
Now,
bird absolutely flew right in front of me.
okay, right. So that's kind of different, right? I mean, that bird flew into the car in essence.
Right,
You didn't run into that. Like on the highway, you're going fast and the bird happens to
right,
be there and, you run into them. They don't have the chance to get out of the way because it's too fast. But like I said, at that speed, some birds fly that speed. That's not a big thing.
right,
So that bird kind of flew into you, really, yeah?
right. That's
Which
right,
which does change the significance of the whole deal. You know what I mean?
right. Yep. So at the exact same spot on the road, there was, I don't know exactly how many, maybe it's between 6 and 8, I'm guessing, trying to remember and counting. Um, and they were sitting in the road towards the right hand side. But usually I see geese, and when they're in a flock, they're kind of one's ahead and the leader, and the others are sort of following, and they're crossing the road and they're looking towards where they're going. Well, these geese were all kind of together and more towards the right hand side of the road where they were the other day, and they were facing the traffic. They weren't facing the left hand side of the road to go across the road.
Right,
They were
right.
literally facing the traffic, and they were just sitting there. And so I had to like stop, and then I'm like, this is the exact same spot. And so I go around them and I look in my rear view mirror, and as soon as I went past, and this was unusual too, the littler ones started going to the side where I always see geese in the big ones lead,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, they all started just going back towards the right hand side of the road,
Huh.
led by the little ones instead of the big ones.
That's
So it was
fascinating.
just bizarre. It was almost like we had eye contact. It was
It's
strange.
magical. It's magical. It's fantastic. It's fantastic. All right. So let me ask you first of, what do geese mean to you personally, just in general?
I
Or what do they represent? Let's ask that way rather than mean. What do they represent?
What do they represent?
Or what do you
Well,
associate them with? I'm going to ask all different ways. Because you said you live on
yeah,
a golf course. So if you live on a golf course, for most people, geese kind of represent a bit of a nuisance almost because they're kind of noisy. They wake you up in the morning, stuff like that, right?
I don't really feel like that
All
though.
right. That's why I'm asking. What do they represent? Or, how do
I
you
am
connect
on a
with
golf
them?
course and they're around a lot. They do poop a lot, and that's kind of
Right.
a nuisance.
Right. Right. That's why other thing I was going to say about on the golf course, you see a lot of geese. Yeah, yeah.
There is.
But
Um,
generally, your attitude towards them is, I'm assuming from the way you responding, there is a positive attitude to them. Not wildly,
yeah,
but not negative either.
no, no, when I see them, it's just more of like they're always flocked together. And so I find that intriguing.
Right, right. But this is before this incident. So the geese represent community for you in a way because you
Kind
said
of,
they're always
yeah.
together. All right, very interesting.
Right.
Right. I mean, they're not solitary birds, obviously, like a heron.
Right.
Right. I mean, even you see them on the golf course. They're always a flock of geese,
They're
and
always, yeah,
they're
together.
always together. Yeah, interesting. Interesting. See, that's the thing with when we look at this stuff. It's what it represents to you, how you see them, how you understand them. You see, I mean, I went through a whole lot of different scenarios, and then it came out, oh, well, you know what? When you think of them, it's like they're always together. Oh, okay. Well, that's something that sort of stands out. It wasn't wildly significant, but it's at least a something, right? So
Right.
and since you started the conversation, or at least it came up, and we started talking on the geese, and then we went off onto other things. And what did you talk about? Like-minded people, community, in other words.
Mm,
You see how it connects, right? We're
right.
starting to. All right, so now we'll explore a little bit further. um, in terms of this this anomaly. Those ducks were in the road and they were facing the oncoming ducks. I said ducks, not geese, and you didn't correct me, which is very interesting. No, it's very interesting because that's where I was heading with this. The geese were sitting in the road, and in other words, they were sitting ducks, weren't they?
Yes.
Right. So since there aren't ducks around, the geese will have to do, symbolically or metaphorically to represent sitting ducks as well. It's an additional layer of a meaning because sitting ducks, we know what a sitting duck means, but this is about as close to literally being a sitting duck, right?
Right.
I mean, it's not entirely accurate, but that's the point, though. So there's obviously more to this if we think about it a little bit more, and they were doing something which is uh, they weren't they weren't entirely ignorant of the danger either because they were looking at the traffic, right?
Right.
But somehow they weren't quite responding to that, or if they knew what they were doing, let's just say for argument's sake, that they weren't sitting ducks and they were looking at the traffic, then you would think that they are being there for a reason which would be to stop the traffic.
Right.
Which is also kind of wild, right?
Yeah.
All right. But if that was the case, when you drove past, they would have continued doing that.
And they didn't.
Exactly. So they were there to stop you. Not stop in a physical sense, but stop you in your thinking, in whatever's going on inside you in some way, no?
Mm-hmm.
You see what I mean? To stop your awareness, which doesn't mean you've got to stop doing what you were doing. But when I mean to stop you, it's like pause to say, hello, what's going on here? Pay attention. In other words, that's what I mean with a stop, right? It got your attention.
Right.
All right. So that's like, I mean, that's just a textbook example of what an anomaly is. It is something that is geared towards stopping your attention, getting your attention, saying, hey, check us out. What's going on here? What's this all about? Right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So here we have community, and a community that is putting itself potentially in danger, but not really, though, right? Because I mean, the geese, they if a car weren't to stop, they would get out the way, right?
Well, when I stopped, they just they stayed there. Usually geese will get out of the way. Like that one that flew right in front the other day, it stopped.
Right.
But it walked and got out of the way.
Right.
Geese just like sat there. It was
right.
strange.
Right. But you were on the other side of the road, or was some of them still more or less a bit in your way?
No, they were totally in my way. They were in my lane, just sitting there staring at the car. And usually when your car comes and it starts to approach a geese, I have always seen where they'll get out of the way. They'll move one way or the other.
I didn't realize that. I thought when you said they were on the right-hand side of the road, I assumed you were on the left. And
no.
Drive by them.
I was on the right, heading north, and they sat right there in my lane.
Okay. So they did stop you then. That's a very key difference. So they
made me stop the car, and I had to go around them.
Wow.
And then after I went around them, instead of crossing the road, they went back to where they were.
Right. So that's really powerful, Donna, in the sense that here you have community, right? If we take geese to represent community, right?
All right.
We have community which is stopping you in your daily routine. And it's saying, whoa, hey, stop, pay attention to community. Right?
Yep.
And then you've got, for instance, all these people that are coming into your life, which are in essence community. These like-minded people, no?
Oh, yeah, I do.
So it seems to me like, well, all right, then there's one more part. Then then what happened when you stopped? How did you get past them? Because you said when you looked in the rearview mirror.
When I stopped and then they didn't move, I went over to the left-hand side of the road and just went around them.
That's what I understand.
Then I went to the left and around them. I looked in my rearview mirror, and they all went back to the right and went back to where they started from.
Led by the insignificant, seemingly ones among them.
Yeah, the little ones.
All right. So that's very important too, don't you think?
Yeah.
I mean, I would say if you were to consider yourself relative to a community of like-minded people, just for me knowing you, and I don't mean this in any kind of a negative way at all, just because of your modesty and your humility, you would most likely consider yourself to be one of the little geese.
Oh,
Yes? No?
um, I
Okay, maybe I'm reading it all wrong then.
um, as far as, okay, I'll tell you how that hit me. When you say little geese, I immediately thought um my maturity on this journey and
Okay.
under my maturity and understanding, I
Right.
would feel like I was a little geese. Yes.
Exactly.
What do you
Exactly.
call a
Right.
little geese?
Right.
Gooseling? Geeseling? Something like that.
Gosling.
Gosling. I'm
Gosling,
a
right.
gosling.
Right. Which is what I mean in terms of your modesty and humility, right? This is why I put that in there beforehand. It's not a literal thing, obviously. It's simply your own understanding that, hey, I need to learn much. And I don't know what all is going on. However,
Right.
however, that's the point to me, or one of the power points of this anomaly. It's saying that even the goslings are can be the ones to do the lead. Because yes, you might not know what's going on, but there are others who are in a similar situation who may even less be connected to what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I mean? So the fact that you know a little doesn't mean that you can't take the lead in things, or at least make a point of the obvious, which is, hey, you know what? You guys want to be stupid and sit in the road looking at the cars? Fine, I'm going to move on. It's just about sensibility. It's not necessarily about leadership. Yeah,
Right. I
they
see
just
what you're saying.
right. I mean, that's a very big difference. You're just sharing what's sensible. You're just doing what's obvious. It's like, well, duh. I'm not going to sit in the road. You guys want to sit in the road? Well, it's up to you. But and they might just be stuck because they don't know what to do, and that happens very often. People get paralysis because of too many options. They don't have a choice. They don't know where to go. All those things. It's very powerful. So we just have to do what we can do. That one little thing, which is actually do the obvious and get out of the road.
Yep.
Right, all right, we have this entire element, and it's not that they were sitting in front of traffic, they were sitting in front of you. I assumed originally that they were just sitting in front of traffic in general, but no, they were stopping you very
Yeah, it
specifically.
was at 6 o'clock in the morning is when I arrive at work.
Wow,
So there isn't much traffic, and they
exactly.
just happen to be right
Right,
there, right when
right,
my
right.
car was. Yeah.
And that's what makes this an anomaly. And not just, well, you run into geese and somebody else might say, geese are just lazy. They were sitting on the road because it's warm, maybe from, left over from the previous day or whatever, or some reason. People always find reasons why animals do weird things, but they were there. From an anomaly point of view, it's really unusual that they're on the same spot and that they happen to be there right when you've been there. And this is a route you regularly drive, and this has never happened before. So this is a personal thing, right? So here you have what our community stopping you and saying, hey, you know what? There's something significant going on here. And the significance is that you are significant in this particular community. Regardless of how little you know, or whether you're gosling or not, doesn't matter.
Well, aren't we all though?
Exactly. We all are, exactly. And that's why it's community. It's not about leadership, it's about significance, which is a difference,
Right.
right?
Totally.
Right, exactly.
Right.
Right. It's about significance, not leadership. Very big difference. Very, very big difference. And that's very, very important, especially in the type of community that you envision and that's part of your vision. Those aren't communities based on hierarchy, right?
No.
Uh,
No.
exactly. Those are communities based on cooperation and sharing, and everybody's celebrating difference, yeah?
Yes.
Which means that everybody's as significant as everybody else.
Exactly.
And that also applies to us and this community, the community of the group, of the course and the group.
Gotcha.
It applies
Huh.
there also. And the reason this has come up and why I mention it, because it is something that was in you as somewhat of a pressure when we first started interacting, right? In terms of,
Right.
especially with the extra sessions, there was, it put a pressure on you in terms of, um, uh, of a feeling of inequality in terms of contribution.
Right.
Right. So, and I went to great effort to explain to you how it's in both ways, part of community. You know, I have a whole bunch of examples that I used, or analogies and metaphors and all sorts of stuff. And this is here you've got an anomaly telling you very clearly that, hey, it's not about leadership or contribution. It's about significance. Everybody is significant. And even the little tiniest gosling can get the freaking flock and the community out of the road in danger. And do what isn't obviously sensible. So we all have our part to play, and we all do play our part, and it's about being sensible and impeccable, really. I mean, were the goslings being impeccable in that case? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Very simple, really. So it's not about what we have, it's just about being sensible and being true to ourselves, right?
Right.
I mean, that's what they were doing there. They weren't saying, follow me. They were just being true to themselves and being sensible, yeah?
Gotcha. Yeah.
It's very powerful. And also, though, but okay, that's on one level. I mean, usually these things have multiple explanations and potential meanings and value. So we also can say, what about being stopped by community? Do you see what I'm saying? In other
Being
words, that's
stopped.
being stopped by community. In other words, pay attention, to stop and say, hey, community is something that's important, that's significant. I got to stop and pay attention to community. You are connecting to your intent to connect to like-minded people. But is that resulting in community of like-minded people?
Hmm.
Hmm. Exactly. It's a big deal, big difference, right?
Right.
So that to me says, the anomaly is trying to say, hey, Donna, maybe it's time that you actually start putting these people, these like-minded people together into a community.
Hmm.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
I like that. Sounds like the geese honk, just a little short one.
Yeah. No. I. I
It's
don't
hard
know
to
about
implement,
that.
of course. I mean, I realize, that the how to implement it is something that's different. All right, let's just take for one thing. We said you and I are community, right? In terms of the way that for me and Olivia, right? So you've joined the community of Olivia and I, and who else is on the course also, and obviously the community of the group as well. But the course is a very, very particular community, as you've already seen, right?
Right.
I mean,
Right.
it is a community of like-minded people in the sense that we are looking for more, to connect to more, to be our full selves, to be our real selves. And I would assume that to be the underlying intent and mindset of the citizens of the City of Love. Yes?
Right.
All right.
Absolutely.
All right. So,
There's definitely alignment there.
exactly. All right. So, that lady you came to the office and you started talking to, and the lady from the restaurant, there's no reason why they can't be a part of this particular group and this particular community.
Gotcha.
You see what I mean? So I'm just saying, though, if you're being stopped by community, it's saying, hey, you want to pay attention. You want to get these communities, they're on the wrong path, as it were. They got to get off the usual beaten track, which is, that's what a highway represents, the typical usual, the beaten track, right? The beaten track. Yeah. To get off that and to, follow that gosling who's on a different path.
Hmm.
So next, if you speak to that lady again, or well, I'm assuming you can connect to some of these people that you have connected to, who have that connection to your vision, right? And that are the like-minded people, to connect with them and say, hey, you know what? I am in a community, or I am doing something that you may also be interested in, or I would assume that they would be, yeah.
Uh, There's always that potential. That's a good seed to plant. I've
Right.
never really done that too much.
Right. I'm just saying, in terms of of not just extending that connectivity, but extending that connectivity to where it is part of a community. Because, like I said, this is a community, not just the course, and us on the Zoom sessions and our interactions, in email or chat or whatever, but also in the group that is very much a part of the community. And at some point, if there's enough people, we'll make a separate group just for people who have done the course. A private group. So,
right.
I mean, that is the long-term intent. But, the groups like that, if there's not enough people in them, they just become kind of a waste of time, So we'll just use the existing group at the meantime. But it's very powerful to me to bring them into your life as community, because you have connected to these people, but you're not connecting to them, from what I understand, in a community way, yes?
That's correct.
And that is important, wouldn't you say? It's not just to connect. You set an intent to connect to like-minded people. But when you really think about that intent, isn't that intent to connect to like-minded people, one, to connect in terms of having a community of them? Because if you take your intent literally, that could mean you connect to them one time and then that's the end of it. That's not what you mean with connect, right?
That's correct.
So when you intend connect, your higher self knows that when you said, I want to connect with like-minded people, it takes connect to mean more than just a one-time connection, which would make it literally true, but also to mean connect as in community and an ongoing interactivity, right? Because surely you don't want to just connect with like-minded people singly and individually. You want them to also connect with each other, I would assume, is part of that implication when it comes to connect, yeah?
Perfect.
All right. So now it's about how can you put this into action? I mean, you could, of course, start your own, the City of Love Facebook group and invite them all to that. That's another option. I just don't know how much that would necessarily appeal to you at this point in time. But that's why I'm suggesting that you can bring them in and connect them in some way to this particular group, to the course, because I got to assume that this would be something that they would be interested in also, right?
I don't know the answer to that. I would feel like if my intent was clear and if my higher self always knows better than I and understood what the intent was, these anomalies with this special connection I have with people would all circle back to the initial intent. So I have some type of, I guess, satisfaction and security in knowing that my higher self is never wrong. So
exactly.
I could be wrong, but my higher self is.
Precisely. Now, one thing that you do know for sure is that you like being in this course and in this particular group of us. Yeah?
Yes.
In this community.
For sure.
All right, exactly. This is not just something that you like and enjoy. This is something that is profoundly and fundamentally important to you. Yes?
Very much so.
Right, exactly. Because of your greater intent, which is why we start this program with clarity of intent. Because your longer intent is to understand about your visions, to understand about your life goals, to understand about all the things that are important to you. And those are, in an abstract way, what has made you the connections to those like-minded people. It is those connections of importance, right?
Right.
Of what's important to you in your life. So in the same way, if they are actually like-minded people, how can they not enjoy this course also?
I see that now.
Because they're also going to be in that situation, like those geese, of basically got this, they're sitting in a road where cars could run them over potentially, right? Which is the same as where you were when you started this course. And I very clearly say and definitively say were, because I don't think that's the case anymore. But to me, if I were to say when I first spoke to you, the very first conversation, you were very much kind of in that space of a sitting duck in the road with knowing that this stuff is coming at you. Knowing, that's the key. You were aware that you were sitting in the road and the traffic is potentially coming at you and you're staring at it and you don't know what to do.
That's right. That's perfect.
Right. So, but the anomaly isn't just about one goose doing that. Yes, that was yesterday or the other day's anomaly, right? And we kind of dealt with that. Today, or whenever this happened, it was about a community of them doing so. And others like you, in other words, because you also had that anomaly of the woman coming to the office and you connecting to her. Do you see how it all starts to fit together and make sense?
I do now.
I mean, it's really cool. It's just magical the way this stuff works. That's the thing with anomalies. It's when, yes, and it starts to connect on multiple layers and it all starts to work together. It's really profound because you set up the anomalies are one thing, but that meeting of the woman and the other one, that's an intent that is manifesting. So anomalies are very intimately connected to our intent as well. So you set up an intent and you get that intent manifested, but you are not kind of taking full advantage of the way that intent is manifesting. And so this anomaly is telling you, hey, Donna, you're actually getting what you want, but you just don't realize it. You intended a community of like-minded people, not just to connect to them and say, hello, we're like-minded and thank you very much, bye. That's pointless, right?
Right.
So
that happens a lot. You pinpointed it perfectly.
Exactly.
I can see the anomalies. Exactly. I understand the connections, and it's like, okay,
now what?
Now what? I've even said
Exactly.
that.
Exactly. I know. And you said that to me too. You said, it's like, I keep getting to the edge of the cliff and, but I kind of want to jump, but I know I can't because I don't know what the hell's going on.
Right. And I almost feel like sometimes I have this feeling that, I don't know if there's anybody like perceiving things, but an energy of it being perceived as a defiance or not complying with the universe. And it's like, that's the last thing I want to do. That's
Exactly.
Totally opposite.
Exactly. And keep in mind, yes, so far we've focused on the way of impeccability, but the end point, the overall goal of the way of impeccability is to live in attunement.
Right.
The two are very fundamentally the way of connected. The way of impeccability is the mechanism for living in attunement. That's very important. We can't live in attunement if we're not impeccable, right?
Say that sentence again, please.
We cannot live in attunement if we're not impeccable. So that's why impeccability comes first. Because if we don't have impeccability, it's pointless talking about attunement. We're just going to have this woo-woo idea, and a lot of people get lost in it, and they think it's a magic cure-all, and it's an escape for them. They can just do whatever the hell they want, and the universe is going to take care of them, and they end up being very crappy and indulgent. So that's why we need impeccability, because it doesn't work that way. And that's why, so many people go on all these courses and retreats and all this magical stuff, and it helps them absolutely bugger all because they don't have those key fundamental underpinnings. Right. So that's why it works this way. However, in our progression, we jumped from the beginning of the course stuff and we kind of skipped all the middle stuff and we went to the end with attunement because it's all connected and because of appropriateness and how it came to be connected to you personally. It came up in terms of your anomalies, and you're an anomaly in terms of your visions and everything. So it was necessary and appropriate to deal with it. Doesn't mean we are going to continue to skip all the stuff in the middle. And, there's a lot more stuff, obviously, that's not all in the course because it's just so much. All of life is course, as we've said many times. Once we start the course, everything is course. There's not anything that isn't course. So we're still going to do all that other stuff. It's just to make this very clear connectivity. And plus, you're getting a very, very strong omens or anomalies twice now, or at least 3 times, that it was about you and connecting to like-minded people and with the community. That's very important. And also in terms of your own underlying intent of also contributing. And I think that was very important. That, that's what came through to me very, very strongly, is that you kind of, felt pressure in terms of your ability to contribute.
That's right.
Right. Well, anyway, if those people are like-minded like you and they want to join the course, that would be a massive contribution, wouldn't it?
Yep.
There you go. See, life is easy. Everybody gets something. That's how this stuff works. It really is how the stuff works, Donna. When we get to the magic of stuff, it not only resolves a particular issue, but it typically resolves the multiplicity of issues that are going on, because nothing is just in isolation. There's always that more, there's that extra thing, a second, third, fourth, fifth layer. So there's always more stuff going on. So anomalies almost always resolve all of the stuff that's been going on, that we've been feeling as a pressure, right?
Yeah.
And I mean,
When I've had these before, I have a feeling of connecting with people differently. You know, you kind of have that deeper connection with
right.
just, you know, few certain people. I have felt like when I'm trying to piece it together and put the puzzle together, like this Donna, my self here, physical self,
The
had to
local Donna.
somehow, what's that?
The local Donna.
Okay, the local Donna had to create, literally be the architect of this city. And like I have, without exaggeration, I've had connections with people who created a city very similar. I've had connections with architects. I've had connections with bankers. I've had, I mean, literally the people that could
Wow.
physically build this, investors, people who run places that are similar for the dogs, health, really forward thinking health professionals that are not within the typical medical. I mean, like all the different aspects of bringing this place to life. And so that's where you've probably felt my frustration,
Yeah, you
and
mentioned
that
it
it
before. I remember
happens
this
so
very clearly. Yeah.
often, I don't know what to do with it.
Right, exactly. And that's the point of community. You specifically don't know how to deal with it, but if you put all those people together in a community, they're going to start interacting, and they're going to say, oh my goodness, oh my goodness, oh my goodness. And then through you and you being the connecting link for them all, what is the connecting link that is bigger than you? Your vision. Right?
Right. It's not,
So now,
yeah,
when
that
they
came
start to
from.
interact and say, what's the commonality here? What's going on here? Then obviously through the interactions is going to come up, well, hey, in my vision, in the vision of this magical city, you know, you the shopkeeper, and you're the restaurateur, you're the dog taker, you're the architect, you're the banker, all this stuff. In other words, they're going to realize that through you, they've come together as a community for the implementation of this vision in the real life way. Yes, your vision is in the future, but that doesn't mean that it can't happen in the now. And you don't have
Yeah.
to be the one to actually be orchestrating it. Look, in the same way as the Gosling was the leader, you don't have to be leader. You can just be the connector. You can one that affects the change, the one that gets them out of the road and into out of the danger or the non-happening, because they were just sitting there, nothing happening, and that wasn't good. You see, so it is not about leadership; it's about significance. But the key is the community.
Mm-hmm.
You
I
see,
didn't know where to connect these people.
exactly. And now
Truthfully,
you have a
the
place to
local,
connect them, right? Because also it is, I would assume that when you speak to these people, they have these aspirations and these noble ideas, yeah?
yeah,
And they don't also always know what to do with them, correct?
correct.
So they in the same boat as you, which is you finding resolution through our interaction, through the course, in other words. And that is important. However, there's more to this, right? Which is the Biala series, which is why I shared it with you, because the Biala series is precisely about the implementation of ideals and putting it into action, right? It's a story about your vision in just a different format, but it's the same thing in the abstract. Yes?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So what I'm trying to say is that you and I share a commonality besides, all the other things that are important to us. We share this utopian vision, as it were, but a realistic utopian vision, not some crazy utopia that's, some woo-woo thing, but realistic. That's the key. It's about the realism of it. So in the same way as that you struggle to connect and understand your own visions and ideals and what's going on and part of doing the course is us in the course here, Olivia and I, helping you to connect to those, to understanding yourself and where you at, your visions, the greater overview perspective, and all the other things that are involved. So in the same way, that will apply to those people as well. And there's more. Think of it this way. In the underlying, if you think of the people in your vision, in the city of love, right? If you think of them as individuals and you connecting to them, are they regular people from everyday life?
Yeah.
But are they this?
They are.
I mean, do they have the same attitudes and mindsets and that?
Oh, no.
No,
But I mean,
exactly.
no.
Right.
They have very different mindsets.
Precisely.
But they're here in the world and they're, working like.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Right. That's what I mean. They are actual real people, but they're also very different. In other words, if you were to say, we could think of it in this way, that like there are people who basically have done the course and kind of, are living in the way of impeccability and living with attunement and are living as spirit warriors or new nobility or whatever particular conception they have. But they are, in other words, they've basically got their shit together as people. Yeah.
Right.
And they following a noble ideal, very much like the people of the Biela series. Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Do you see what I'm getting at?
Yeah.
I'm trying to say, in other words, for your city of love to happen, you basically need course as a prerequisite to get to that spot for your community. If the community are like-minded people like you.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, Donna, if you were to say before the course, right? If the city suddenly somebody, you find out some place in the world had the city and they were just pulling people like you who had this idea, would you have felt fully appropriate and comfortable in that city as the
Donna? I wouldn't have had the foundation to do it right.
Precisely my point.
And I've always known that.
Precisely. And I'm trying to be gentle here, but, we have to be real about ourselves too. That we have to say, hey, you know what? I've got shit to learn. And if I don't learn it, then I'm not going to fit there. And it's not about fitting in. And that's what you started off with. You said, I don't fit in. And that was the issue, right? The big issue for you when we started, it was about not fitting in. But it's not about not fitting in at work. It's about not fitting in the city of love. That's the real place where you feel you don't fit in yet. Does that make sense what I'm saying? Yep. I mean, yes, you fit in, but in the future, not, that, hey, I've got stuff to learn, to sort out within myself so that I can be appropriate for the city of love. Right. Yeah? Does that make sense what I'm saying? I mean, that's a huge deal. That's a huge, huge, huge deal. And it's a complete relook.
Fully aware of that.
Right, exactly. And it's a relook at fitting in. Now, in the same way as you feel that you don't yet fit in, and it's very key, yet fully fit in, because I do feel you very much more fit in now than you did before we started, yes?
Yes.
Right. I feel and I really see in you this profound shift, which is making the difference, right? And you can see that, hey, you now are on the right path to fitting in, yes?
Yes.
I mean, even if we stopped interacting today, it will just take you longer, but you know where the path is at least. In the same way, those people that you're connecting to, those like-minded people, I would almost definitely bet on the fact that they too do not feel like they quite yet fit in with their noble ideal. Yeah?
Gotcha. Probably.
Which is why I'm recommending to say, hey, invite them to be a part of this particular course community. And, in the same way with you, if they want to connect, tell them as much as you like about it, or they can just, get on a call with me and I'll explain it all to them. It's no problem. We can do it jointly, and just start up a Zoom session and invite them and have a chat, Again, and the same way as with you, when you joined the course, it was about the appropriateness and the attunement of the moment as to how precisely you connected. And that's going to be with whoever's individual circumstances. Some will connect differently to others. It won't be the same for everybody. That's just the way the universe works, right?
Right.
But you see, I trusted the universe, and this, and you'll see trust coming through in a very profound way in the course. There's a whole bunch of sessions that are connected to trust. There's one session called capital T trust, but it comes through in many other sessions because that capital T trust is a huge deal. It is absolutely vitally fundamental to living in attunement. We have to trust. You have to trust in something that there's more to things than what we know and understand. Yeah?
Absolutely.
We have to trust in the magic, in other words.
Right.
I mean, it's quite brilliant, isn't it? I mean, when one really connects to the brilliance and the genius of these things, these anomalies, and how it all works out, it just like blows our mind, no?
Well, yeah.
The magic of it all.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was gonna say. The magic of it all.
It's just incredible. It's just so incredible. I mean, I never get tired of it, and that's the point of living in attunement. It's not about optimal efficiency and effectiveness. Or I should say, not only about that. Yes, it is about using our energy efficiently, but it's about living in attunement, is about living in magic.
Right.
That's the key. That's why we want to live in attunement, because it is so incredibly magical, as you're discovering.
Right.
Right. Now, the crazy part of it is that you've always had this. It's not something new. You're just being more aware of what was always the case. What is the case? I'm not bringing anything new into your life with anomalies. You've always had them. I'm just helping you make sense of it.
Right.
Which is being aware of the different factors involved. I'm not saying anything, believe this, believe that. No, it's all self-evident once we kind of look through it and pay attention to what's going on, right? And this is the big key, that those intents are intensely personal to you, Donna, right? Your intent, so you know and understand your intent. You know how it manifests. That's not something I can convince you of. That you know independently of me. It has nothing to do with me or anybody else, right?
Well, and that's one of the reasons I feel so comfortable with you immediately and your approach. Whoops, I dropped the phone. Was that you don't do that.
Right.
And
right.
so many other situations I've been involved with
Right.
has been all about that. That's when I've known. That's helped me know.
Right.
Oh, man, I lost your picture. Where'd you go?
Right. Well, you put your picture on for a second, and then I think you put it off, and then you put my picture off instead. But you're back. I'm back. Hello. I like seeing your picture. There you go. Brilliant. Brilliant. Yeah,
but
exactly.
You on there, not me.
Right. And that's important when speaking to your community people that are the like-minded people, because they're also my like-minded people too, right? Because we like-minded, not necessarily about the city of love, but what's the difference between Nobilia and the city of love? Abstract.
I'm starting to wonder that question, right?
It's the same thing in the abstract.
Right.
It's exactly the same thing. Right. So we are already part of this community in the biggest. That's why I wanted you to read the whole Biela series. Keep going, and you'll see more and more how it goes. Because the first two chapters they're very different in how they are compared to the rest of the story. I think even the third one, and then kind of it gets into more of the community from the fourth, fifth chapters onwards. So it has a life of its own, the story. But anyway, and there are other books of the Biela series, so there's a lot to it. But anyway, you'll get the sense of what I'm saying with where it's the same thing essentially when you look at it in the abstract, right? So we are already, the two of us, on that same path. Well, and Olivia too, of course. She's part of Nobilia and the whole thing. So that's what I'm saying. So getting these people involved with the course, it's connecting to that. It's basically essentially we're all starting off as aspirants and looking to be new nobles. Now, I'm reluctant to use that in the course, and that's why I didn't even put it in that self-conception. We said spirit warrior and agent of the universe and all the other different terms. So I didn't put new noble in there because that's kind of personal to me, and I don't know if that's everybody's ideal and thing. So, okay, I'll leave it out. But, I can use it for myself, certainly. I mean, I definitely feel like a perpetual aspirant.
Right.
Right. And all the new nobility do, by the way, even if they technically become a new noble, they still inside, they know they are perpetual aspirants, always. How can you not be? How can you not be?
Right. Exactly.
Exactly.
How can you not be?
Exactly. So the key takeaway from all of this, Donna, to kind of, put it together and wrap it up so that we have a definitive takeaway that's important, is that you put out an intent to connect with like-minded people, which
Right.
means a community of like-minded people, really. That's the intent in actuality, right?
Correct.
All right. So now you have a mechanism, because it's no use you actually, let's say you literally could, you had the means, or one of the people say, okay, you know what, I've got this place out there on this farm, and we can all set up a commune over there or whatever. If you and all the like-minded people you've already met were literally to go and set up a physical community today, it would kind of be a cock up in the long run, wouldn't it? Because people
Yes,
aren't ready for it yet.
it would. Yes, absolutely.
Exactly. All right. So the course then becomes the mechanism for making sure that your community is viable in the long term.
Which I knew. That's exactly what I needed.
Exactly. You know more than you think you do. We don't work the way the world works.
No.
We are more. We are enough, but we're also more. Yes, we have to understand that we are more, and our deeper self has this incredible genius to it, which is like, wow, now that I think of it, you know what? I kind of did know that, but I didn't know that I knew that, but I did actually.
I did. It's like I knew it, but I didn't have words for it. And it was so frustrating.
Exactly.
Even when I was talking to you, I was like, I put words to it.
Right.
Can
And
you just repeat that? What you said about the course. The course makes
the course is the mechanism for making sure that your community is viable in the long term.
Right.
Because it's basically community training.
Right.
That's what it is. Because if you guys aren't, and not you guys, us guys, in the community that we aim to be in, and this goes for Olivia and I, we came to this country for the specific intent of community. So this is a long-standing intent for us, quarter century's worth of intent, more. So again, the course is to make sure that we are able to be in a community of our intents and desires. Because if we don't have our shit together, if we're not impeccable, in other words, if we don't have our self-conceptions, if we aren't able to celebrate difference, if we don't have trust of intent in others, and all of the other things that you'll see come in the Biela series, if we don't have those fundamentals in place, there's no way such a community gets going. Any community, and you can look at the history of these type of utopian communities. They set up and they last for a while, and then they all implode because people they can't work together.
How is this different than the teaching that your level of consciousness has the ability to expand and grow to different degrees? I'll use that word because I don't have a better one.
Right.
Versus what you're doing, because what you're doing, there's application
Wow.
in that whole teaching. That felt so pie in the sky to me. I didn't know how to grab onto that, make it real.
There's your answer. You just answered your own question.
Oh.
It's about the application. It is about the specific mechanisms. We'll get to that later in the sessions about energy management specifically, which energy management is the top of a triangle. And then on the one side, you've got mood management, and the other side, you've got habit management. And between those, energy, habits, moods, we get to pay attention to our daily activities, what we're doing on a moment-to-moment basis. And
I can't wait to get into that.
Yes, it's very exciting stuff. I mean, there's very real, actual, practical techniques we can apply that make a profound difference to how we live, so that we can get out of that path that we're sitting on as these dead ducks with the cars coming at us.
So when I have felt from my higher self that we are going to build, like people say, oh, the very few that I've shared this with, their comments always like, well, how are you, local self, going to do that? And then that'll never last here. People don't feel the way you do. They don't see the world the way you do.
Exactly.
And it was like, I just know it's going to.
Right, exactly. And was it, I don't know if it was you or somebody else in the last session who said, I think it was you. You asked the question about, do we all end up believing more or less the same things in the end, even though we're coming at the stuff from different, and there's no belief in,
Right.
right? Why? Why do we get to that commonality of understanding, not belief, of understanding?
Right.
Because the entirety of the course and what we are sharing is about connecting to self-evident sensibility within us. Self-evident sensibility is self-evident sensibility regardless of who it comes from or who it's in. Everybody can see and understand self-evident sensibility. It's common to us all. And that is what is, in the longer term, that is what is going to be the key connecting link of this type of a community and what will make it work. That core understanding of self-evident sensibility and the noble ideal, to put it in Biala terms.
So you're just helping people have applicable tools to connect to their higher self and kind of stay there.
Right. And also to connect to their root basic self, not just the higher self, because it's the root
Okay.
basic self that has to be in place. There are many people who are connected to their higher selves, but they get lost in woo-woo and all the spiritual mumbo jumbo, and they still ourselves on the surface because they're still connected to ego and self-importance and the dominance paradigm and all this other rubbish. In other
Right.
words, they don't have the way of impeccability as a key fundamental. You
Well, I
can't.
kind of feel like I'm like that, to be honest. I don't have the root fully
It's
rooted.
coming. It's coming. That's why the course is called not the way of attunement or living in attunement, which it could be called. Why it's called the way of impeccability. The way of impeccability comes first. Without the way of impeccability, there is no attunement. There is no higher self. There is no spirituality. There is no connectivity.
Ah,
You will simply get lost in that. And I
right.
have friends who have, like you, they have visions and all sorts of wonderful stuff happens to them, but they don't have the underpinnings to deal with it, and it messes them up. I mean, they get into these horrible situations and kind of almost nightmare situations and all sorts of stuff, right? They get run over by those cars on the road. So the underpinnings are
I can
very,
appreciate that.
very important.
I've been there.
Right. We need that discernment to really connect and to have that underpinnings of impeccability so that we can deal with all the shit, so that we have that sensibility of self, that sobriety, which is our warrior's way, which is so, so, so powerful. That's why we call spirit warriors, because it's all about being able to deal with all the different travails and tribulations and difficulties when it comes to connecting to spirit and visions. There's all sorts of stuff involved. It's a very uncertain business. So we need to be sure. It's like going into war. It's a very uncertain business. So we need to have our shit together going into this. Yeah?
Yeah, I'll
Right.
say.
And now when we think of our task at hand, because your anomaly was about community, or the two anomalies, is that in the same way, a community is very much like going into war. It's all sorts of unknowns and all sorts of difficulties and things going on. If there's not unity in terms of where people are at, what their intent is, what they're about, their core underpinnings, if they don't have, themselves together, if they have other agendas like, self-importance agendas and all this shit, forget it. Those communities never last, or they end up with a dictator and end up into a cult, right? So
Right.
that's why the course is so absolutely critically fundamental for this type of community.
Mm.
It's really, really, really huge. And why that what I emphasize so often, and Olivia too, is that no belief required. That's why this is so absolutely critical. You look at all those other communities that have tried to do this and why they all fail, it's because of this issue of belief. Because there's the belief, somebody's pushing a belief, and that's the problems. And also they don't understand the whole issue of belief. So people have beliefs of, hey, I should be this, I should be that. And they still believe in self-importance, and they still believe in dominance, and they still believe in ego and all the other crap that's surrounded by belief.
When other
Impeccability
people
requires
take
no belief.
when people take this course, the other individuals take this course,
Uh-huh.
it helps them have the tools for the mechanism to kind of build their connections to what they have as visions.
Well, you're the only one who has that I know of so far that has visions of this particular nature. Nikki connects to her like her spirit guide. So, in that sense, she has visions, you could say, but, it's a different, it's not a vision in the same way as yours. Bina is a revelational visionary, but she sees in a different way. She doesn't have a vision like you do of a of a literal visual that you can actually see something. She's seeing a visionary more in the sense of somebody who sees what could be happen in the future. That kind of a visionary, and specifically revelational, which means she's a visionary that sees the truth, the profound revealed truth of what could be in the future. So she's very much on a more abstract level. Um,
Mm.
and then, like say Miles and John, who came and did the course here with us over 8 days, like in a real intensive, we did one module every single day. They literally came to our house here. And that's related to Miles's vision of a movement to raise awareness of society. So different visions involved. But yes, absolutely, it does help them connect and put into practice what they are about. Now, Nikki hasn't really started yet, so I can't really speak for Nikki so much. But the same thing with Ryan and Michael and Janelle. They connected to the religious side of things, and they have this vision of bringing religion to people that were like them, that were raised in these restrictive religious upbringings, but they don't they want to apply the true core of the religion, but they don't want all the trappings and nonsense of church and religion itself. They want the underlying actual goodness. So they too have a vision. I mean, they see themselves as bringing a different teaching, in the sense of a different understanding about religion to the world in large. So yeah, all of them have their own visions in their different ways, for sure. Absolutely. And it does absolutely help them to connect to life, because that's the thing with impeccability, and all the other techniques and things that are on the course, that it enables you to deal with anything.
Anything, right?
Yeah, anything, exactly. That's the whole point of it. That's why it's so magical and so powerful, and why it's the core of the course. It's the tool of tools.
Right. Thank you for sharing that.
Oh, such a pleasure. I love this, Donna. I truly love this, and a big part of this impeccability is to be impeccably self-honest. Now, most people aren't. And you know why? Because they only focus on the bad stuff about them. They're all honest about, good people. Typically, I'm not talking about, narcissists. Good people, earnest good people like yourself. They aren't actually truly self-honest. They're only self-honest about all the bad crap. They're not self-honest about the good crap. we gotta be self-honest about the good and the bad. If we're gonna be honest about the bad stuff, we gotta be honest about the good stuff also. And as impeccable people, we want to be self-honest about everything, right? Which means that we have to appreciate the goodness of ourselves, and that is one of the key parts of impeccability. All right, now keep that in mind about that appreciation of the self-honesty, of appreciation, of self-appreciation. Keep it in mind when reading the Biala series.
Okay. Well, it's interesting that you say narcissist, because that was a theme that came up not too long ago in conversations and such. And I've had people in my life that I would say that the majority of people would agree that they had the characteristics and traits, my two very important people. And so I literally wonder if I have that same type of.
No, you don't. I'll tell you, as somebody who's written a book on it, no, you don't. So, all right, just leave it there. If you want to read the book, fine. You can go look it up and read it. Elivia and I have a book called Out BS. Yeah. I'll get you the link here in a second.
Yeah, I'd like to read that. I mean, two very, very key people. And it came up in conversations constantly for like 2 weeks straight. And I was like, this is something I have to look at about myself that I'm not being honest with myself about. Is this whole city somehow an egotistical?
No.
I really did go through that.
Donna, you know what? I've never yet met the narcissist who honestly and genuinely, honestly thought that they were a narcissist. Only honest, good people think that.
Oh,
It's
isn't
like,
that interesting, huh?
yeah. I mean, they'll pretend and oh, you know what? They'll say it in public. Yeah, I'm a bit of a narcissist, but they're just playing the game. They're doing it for attention and people to say, oh, no, you're not really, and all this bullshit. They know that they're doing it just to get shine and attention and all the other stuff, but not in a real, genuine, earnest way. So I put the link for the book in
Yeah.
book.
I do feel like that may be an area that
Why?
has created some of maybe a deeper depth of not
Why?
fully embracing my self-acceptance
Why?
and
Why?
appreciation. Two main people in my life
Right.
for a lifetime.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So let me put this into full context here. The Out BS book, it is a book with a very specific purpose and a very specific intent, and it is all related and connected. Now, first of all, it can be its own separate course. It's not a course that we are keen to do because well, you're dealing with all sorts of crap and stuff, and so hopefully we can just kind of skip that. But nonetheless, it is something that we could very much do. And if you have community of people who are kind of caught up in that, okay, yes, we can deal with it.
Caught
But
up in what?
in
Caught up in what?
in the whole narcissism deal, we call them BMNs, bullshit manipulated narcissists, BMN.
Oh, okay, I didn't catch the BMN. Got it.
Right. Okay. So I'm saying if you have people that are in your community and this dealing with bullshit and narcissism and manipulation and all that stuff, dealing with BMNs, in other words, with themselves or with others, that whole mindset, that whole logic, we can deal with that, and we can kind of do a little kind of a sub course, as it were, on that if needed. But I want to say this: the point and purpose of the book is for unlearning.
Right.
So before we can learn, we have to unlearn sometimes. All right.
Right.
So when you read that book, you're going to say, oh my God, this is me. I have my one friend. She was horrified. She says, because we used to speak, I have very intense conversations like this a lot. And she says, but you're writing about me. No, I'm not. It's got nothing to do with you. Absolutely nothing. And everybody who are our good friends, the earnest good people we know, they all think the book is about them. And no, it's not about any of you. It's not at all. The point is that we did this very specifically for the purpose of getting a look at ourselves through the excess. When we see the excess, now the book is basically pointing out very, very clearly the excess of an excessive personality psychology mindset, which is that of the BMN, right? Now,
okay, right. I said right.
Oh, I thought you wanted me to wait while you make a note.
Nope, I got it.
All right. So when we look at the excess, it's very easy to see what's obvious and to see what's going on and to understand how it all works, because it's all very exaggerated and it's very clear. Yeah. Now,
Yeah.
So that same stuff that you see in the narcissist, of course, there's a little bit of it in ourselves, a little teeny weeny bit, right? But it's subtle because it's a little. We kind of know it's there, but it's difficult to identify because it's subtle. So when we look at the narcissist and we see it so obviously, and through the book, we see this so glaringly obvious, we can now connect it to what is there subtly within us and deal with it. Doesn't make us a narcissist or a BMN, but it does mean that we have some of that in us, or little bits of it, and that we can fix it and resolve it and deal with it and understand. And also understand that as a human being, we are capable of being BMNs. We are capable of being dictators and horrors and monsters and serial killers. We are capable of anything, and we have to be real about that. We choose not to be because that's our impeccability, but we're still capable of it. So we can't say that, you know what, I don't have this. No, we have all of that in us. It's about managing it and managing it sensibly, which means we have to understand it. And that's the point of the book. It's to unlearn the little bit of crap we still have left over in us, to be aware of the conditioned mindset, that whole superiority paradigm, that whole mindset of dominance and ego and all the self-importance, all that shit. When we understand it, we can see why it's no good at all and let go of the little bit that we have inside ourselves, right? So we're not BMNs, we just have little bits of it in us, so we can unlearn that. And the purpose is we look at the greater horror of them and the excess, and through that we can get rid of it in ourselves. And also, it is very helpful to understand when we do have to deal with real life BMNs, because it's not about dealing with the BMNs like Trump. He's not in our life. We don't deal with him personally. We want to deal with the BMNs when Trump was a nobody, right?
Right.
We want to learn to deal with those people when they are nobodies, so that they don't become horrors like Trump.
Mhm.
Right? That's
If
very
we
big
acknowledge we have the ability to, and we do have pieces like you're saying of that, is there less of it that surrounds your world? Like,
yeah.
I mean, I'm talking about spouse and
Yes.
family
Yes.
members,
Yes.
bosses.
Yes. 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 The more you understand it, the less you'll have it in your life. Initially, maybe not. Why? Because that's the way the universe works. It's saying to you, hey, this is something you need to be aware of, because BMNs are a very real part of life. They're a big part of life. They're kind of everywhere, because that's of the survival paradigm, which leads to the superiority paradigm. So I'll explain in the book, and we can go into it when you read. We can have sessions about the book if you like.
Okay, cool.
All right. So when we understand that this is something that's very important in life, and we make this case, I mean, originally the book was called The Cancer of Bullshit, right? Because it is a cancer and it affects everything, and it's a big fuck up in life. So we have to understand this and how to deal with it, right? So initially, right, look, what's the point and purpose of everything? It's about the enhancement and development of awareness, correct?
All right.
So the universe may bring a couple of BMNs into your life while you read the book, while you're dealing with it, to give you the opportunity to practice and apply, and to kind of figure it out, and to make that application where you can say, okay, I got this. I understand. They're not an issue. I can deal with them. I know how to deal with them. And the basic way to deal with them is just through understanding and awareness. That's the key. So so you may get a bit of it initially, but once you got it all figured out and you understand them, they'll disappear from your life. Because the universe says, what do you need them in your life for? You don't need to learn this lesson anymore. You know it now. You got it. You can move on to other stuff.
Right. I had 3 major players. I still have one.
Right.
And that's exactly what I feel like. I feel like even that, it just naturally, they transition out of your life.
Right. Exactly.
And then you
exactly.
manage it and become aware, and it just sort of
Right.
shifts out.
Right. Exactly. But we have to be aware, though. We have to be acutely aware of that underlying logic of that whole system. It's very important. Now, it is particularly important when it comes to community.
Right.
Especially new communities. One BMN will ruin your whole deal. Every single cult has a BMN at the top. That's the cult leader is a BMN. That's the very definition of a cult leader is a BMN.
Right.
They abusive and manipulative narcissists, and they bullshit like crazy. So they are totally bullshit manipulator narcissists, right?
Right.
Right. So, but you want to know the subtleties involved, right? So that when the community and everybody in the community understands those, so that those things don't creep in and just by default kind of happen and come about. And then the next thing you know, you sit with a BMN in charge. No, to hell with that. That's why we want to know the stuff and understand it. It's very, very important in the longer term. So yeah,
Exactly.
reading the book would be a very good deal. And
for some reason, I feel like it's something I do need to do. It's just like
yes, I agree.
That pull.
I agree. It would be very beneficial from a whole multiple host of reasons, not only for understanding the subtle within yourself, but also the conditioned mindsets which are there, which we might not subscribe to, and typically we don't subscribe to, but they still have a part of us. It's that whole should logic. So when we're clearly aware of that, then we don't shoot on ourselves, and that's really useful.
Okay.
So it's very powerful to understand. Understanding is the key. We want awareness, discernment, and understanding. It's very powerful. So when it comes to self-understanding, it's very, very useful to understand the basic paradigms of life, which are ones that we don't want to subscribe to. Because we are saying, in terms of your vision, in terms of the noble ideal, nobilia, the new nobility, the spirit warrior, all of these concepts of being more, all of them are a paradigm of being which is not the usual traditional typical paradigm of being that life in general that convention puts into play. It is completely not that. It's something completely different and something that's not part of convention. We are
Right.
going against the stream. Now, it's like we said, when you undo the negativity, it's no good to get rid of the negativity. You end up with zero. We need a replacement. All right. Understanding the whole bullshit manipulator narcissist paradigm of way of being and all that logic and that mindset. That's understanding the negative, and we can get rid of it. The noble ideal, the spirit warrior ideal, the way of impeccability, that's the positive replacement.
Right.
Goes together. So yeah, so that whole book is about the unlearning part, and it's part of the reality series. There are actually 2 more books, which hopefully we'll get to put out soon enough. But it's, and then there's kind of a middle series, and then we get to the Biela series. The Biela series is kind of the end part, and the reason we were all ready to go and publish the Biela series, and we didn't. The Out BS book came along because we realized that there needed to be somewhat of a preparation before getting to the Biala series, just
Yep.
more general terms. So we had to unlearn before we can learn, just the nature of things. But yeah, that book will be very powerful. And Donna, it will be cool to do Zoom sessions on the book itself, and it's something that we'll set up a little differently. And I'm pretty sure with Nikki and with Miles and John and the group and other groups that there'll be people who would like to join on in discussion of the book, because it's a very deep topic for a lot of people. And I suspect you probably know other people, particularly women, who've dealt with BMNs in their lives, and
Mm-hmm.
been in that
I had
situation.
a kind of a anomaly. I can't say that word. I'll
Anomaly.
just thank you.
Anomaly.
Anomaly situation with a woman who is a life coach who specializes in help assisting women who have had strong narcissistic personalities in
Right,
their life.
right, right.
So that was all during that same 2-week period.
Brilliant,
It
brilliant,
just was
brilliant,
coming at
brilliant.
me everywhere.
Right.
Yeah. So for some reason I know within me I need to address this.
Fantastic.
So,
Also, keep in mind when speaking to people, our course is actually designed for other life coaches and for people in leadership positions, like CEOs or anybody in a leadership position. Don't have to be a CEO, but it's designed for people who are looking at things from the top down. Now, yes, it applies to everybody, of course, but
right.
it's particularly useful for people in those positions, because if you understand the overall logic of things, the greater abstract view, you can then apply your particular circumstances in a more effective and appropriate manner. Right?
Right. And if they're in those situations, they do have that.
Right. So I'm just saying, like
Right.
for you said, this friend or this person you know
Life coach.
who's a life coach
Yeah.
that deals with a narcissist, the way of impeccability is particularly useful for life coaches. Or
Right.
for people in leadership positions like CEOs.
Well, when you were talking about connecting people and the different people I've interacted, she immediately came
There
to
you
me
go.
as somebody
There you
who,
go.
yeah.
There you go. There you go.
Okay.
So just
So,
connect the people, and I want to put a link for you if you want to get them to, if they want to make an appointment to chat to me about the course and connecting and whatever.
mm-hmm.
They can just go to nobelia.org/apply. I'll type it for you. Very easy to remember. nobelia.org/apply.
Okay.
And that's where it's a scheduling thing, which they can just schedule an appointment with me if they want to be specific. You know what I mean? They can set a specific
Yeah.
time, and
That's where I started, right?
that's exactly where you started. Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Could you please say that one? You had bullet points, and I only got one of them. It was self-understanding. I know it was a while ago. I'm
It's
sorry.
okay, but just tell me which connection was in connection
We
with
were
what.
talking about the applicability of understanding at a core, very small level of narcissism, and how we're shifting that. We're looking at self-acceptance, self-understanding.
Oh, and
That
I don't think I said self-trust, but that was the key. Self-appreciation.
self-appreciation.
Yeah.
Right.
That was the core of that. It's about self appreciation, to understand ourselves. I'm not sure. I don't remember the exact context that we were saying this in.
That's okay.
But
And I think too, what I really have a keen desire to understand is, people throw this phrase around, And I always want to stop whoever says it and say, what in the hell does that mean to you?
It happens a lot.
That is, you've got to love yourself.
Right. Right.
What
Right.
does that mean? And everybody is like, you notice that?
Oh, I see it all the
Love
time.
yourself.
I agree. I agree. And I have the same disconnect with it as you do. And it's a big issue for many people. It's like, oh, it's all about self-love, all about self-love. Well, yes, maybe, but I can appreciate myself. I don't know so much about self-love. I don't know. It has a different connectivity to me. To me, love is something outside of the self, right? That to me is by definition what love means. It's having a real positive experience of something other than yourself. Well, anyway, that's just me. But I try not to go into self-love because it's a very personal and particular term. Self-appreciation, however, that's something else. That just means I'm being honest about my positive qualities. That's all that self-appreciation means.
You could probably do a whole course on self-love.
Yep. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And we do get into it somewhat, because it's there's a foundation to it. Self-love, it's based on self-appreciation and self-acceptance on the one corner and self-trust on the other corner. Again, one of those little golden triangles. Those little power triangles. So yes, I suppose self-love is where you enjoy yourself. Right? Now that I can understand, that I can get with.
Well, it's almost like self-appreciation. You're just being real. You're seeing that we all have that shadow. We all have good.
Exactly.
Our impeccability is where we're headed, and being aware of ourselves and our behavior, and then trusting yourself. Of course, you trust yourself because if you understand who you really are, there's no doubt that you would trust yourself. And
exactly.
Yeah.
And then
so
we
I
get
can
to
see how it all circles
right,
around.
and then we get to self-acceptance, which is accepting that we have all of those so-called shadow parts. They aren't shadow; they're not good or bad. They're just colors of the rainbow. And the same thing with colors, depending on how you use colors, it's either brilliant or it's terrible. Right? I mean, just look at fashion. Right? So
see, I love your perspective. I love when you do that. That's so good.
Right. So when it comes to self-trust and self-acceptance, we have to understand that, hey, my ability to be mean and cruel, it's an ability which is a part of me, and it has to be there because I'm everything. I'm all of the universe. At some point in time, who knows, it might be something that's necessary. I don't know. It could be. So it's there. It's a part of me. I choose not to use it in the same way as I choose not to use those colors in the particular situations. All about appropriateness. That's why appropriateness is at the very top of everything. So that's the key. There's no good or bad to us. It's about, we have all these qualities and it's about using them appropriately. And it's to develop the awareness and the sensibility thus, and the sobriety, and of course, the impeccability, which allows us to be appropriate and to use all of ourselves appropriately.
All right. There you go with that. Excellent recap and emphasis.
Thank you.
That's so good.
Yes. It is excellent and cool. You're right. I mean, that is the skill.
It is.
I mean, that is something I appreciate about myself, and I really work hard at because it's so important. It's vitally critical.
You're very good at it.
So I'm connecting this to self-love, Donna. For me, self-love is self-joy. We have to learn to enjoy who we are ourselves, to enjoy being ourselves. And that's the key that we're heading towards, right?
Yeah, I resonate so much more with self-joy and acceptance.
Than self-love.
Yeah.
Exactly. Me too. Which is why I bring it up, because I feel the same way about self-love. It doesn't quite resonate to me. But when I say, instead of self-love, if I just change that apex point there, I say self-joy. Cool. Yeah, that's what I'm aiming for. Yes. I want to feel self-joy, that I'm enjoying being myself. That's it. Right.
And everything that involves, and I'm good with it all.
Right, exactly. I'm not in love with myself, which self-love implies, because it goes against what I understand love to mean. But hey, self-joy, yes, I do need to. If I want to love somebody else and enjoy love in general, I need to be at one and at peace with myself and enjoy myself, because you can't really love if you not enjoy, right?
I totally resonate with everything you just said there. Yeah.
Right.
Well, listen, I'm running out of energy.
Okay.
As much as I love this.
Right. It's very important to enjoy ourselves, because we can't do anything else when we don't.
That's so true.
Joy is
This
cool.
is excellent.
Oh,
Thank you
I love
so
it. I love
much.
it. So yeah, I'm keen to, make a post about the highlights just so that it locks them in. And then next time we'll talk more about the community and connecting people, and also about the Out BS book to carry over things for next time.
Sounds great.
Fantastic. I love it, Donna. I love it. I love it. I love it. I really enjoy these. They are truly magical, and just, the whole thing, it's just wonderful. So fantastic. Fantastic. Good night. Good night,
Excellent.
Donna. Sleep
Good
well.
night.
Sleep well.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
bye
You too.
bye.
Bye.
And meeting. And